Hello everyone. Welcome to our latest webinar in the series Doing PR Around the Globe. Today we are talking about PR in Vietnam. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Gabor Sarlos and I'm the discipline lead for professional communication at RMIT University Vietnam. This webinar is brought to you by CIPR International, which is one of the largest groups within the Chartered Institute of Public Relations, which is the leading representative body for the PR profession and industry in Europe. CIPR International promotes networking and sharing experiences among PR professionals, practitioners and academics in the UK and globally. Our mission is to act both as a supportive member organization for those working internationally and at the same time create a center of excellence and knowledge about public relations around the globe. Today is a special day. When talking about PR in Vietnam, I have two distinguished guests who will help us understand how PR works in this country. So let me welcome first Ms. Nguyen Thi Tin Tan, the CEO of Edelman Vietnam, and Tran Huy Nha Tran, the Communications Manager of RMIT University Vietnam. They will help us have an insight into how PR is today in Vietnam. And before I hand over the word, please don't forget that this webinar is accredited for CIPR CPD, so don't forget to log on. So let me hand over the word first to you, Ms. Titi, and ask your views about PR in Vietnam.
It's such a pleasure to be here and, talking of my little knowledge about PR in Vietnam. But before I get into my presentation, I would like to have a little introduction about myself. Surprisingly, originally, I'm not a PR person. I came from a creative, background. I used to work in advertising for 14 years. Well, actually 17 years before I moved to Edelman and heading Edelman Vietnam 3 years ago. So I started my career with JWT, with Publicis, before I moved to Edelman. So what does it mean? It means that, BR is new, but it's not exactly new to me because, it's also in the communication field. So given a very little time that I am having today, I'm sharing with you my view on BR in Vietnam. Starting with a statement, in Vietnam, the word public relation might be quite tricky. And in general, it's actually provoking more negative than positive. I don't know if its notion or its sentiment is actually shared around the world, but in Vietnam, when they meant to talk about something bad, but doing bad publicity, and then they use the word, it's just a BR tactic. But anyway, in Vietnam, if you're talking about Edelman, well, I've been in Vietnam for long enough to understand the communication industry, including advertising, BR, digital, and, media. I would say it's such a long time being introduced in Vietnam, probably 25 years ago. But whether or not it reached to the level that we so-called professional, as doing BR in another country, I'm not very sure we can call ourselves as a professional BR. So at Edelman, the way that we do in BR is actually quite different to the normal practice. Because Edelman, if you're properly aware of, we are a professional BR agency, one of the oldest and one of the biggest in the world. So we sort of introduce what I so-call the professional BR, which a proper, a unit in Vietnam. By doing something that's quite different with the practice, we face a certain challenge, but it's not the topic of what I'm talking today. We're introducing the BR and the corporate BR. The corporate BR you probably already know. That's the historical, traditional BR, but still today in Vietnam, it's growing and then it's proven the important role in the different stakeholders. We're talking about corporate affairs, we're talking about media relationship, crisis management, building the reputation. on the brand BR, which is the popular practice that you've seen a lot of corporation and a lot of brands have been using when as a as a one of the integrated channels together with TVC, together with digital, together with influencer. BR is considered as depends on the budget and depends on the objective. When it comes into the education, when it comes into building some sort of a reputation for brand in terms of credibility, they normally look at BR as the key channels in the entire mix. But if you look at BR as a symbol to unit, I would say the brand BR is losing relevance. The corporate BR is something new in Vietnam, just newly introduced and newly, being aware of and newly understood. And then that's increasing the role important a little bit. So that's sort of a, top line BR, function in Vietnam. Now, I'm going quickly on the media landscape and regulatory environment. Before I go into a little bit of detail on the media landscape, the trust context in Vietnam. You know, trust index is going down everywhere in the world. Even that if you're talking about abdomen, you probably know the trust barometer. We didn't conduct the trust barometer in Vietnam officially, but we're actually using a certain, method and, measure from the different stakeholders. This one might not be exactly official, but the conclusion come in from the trust context in Vietnam is not very different from global trends. The increasing government scrutiny, the rising stakeholder expectation from the consumer right, and the dispersion of the authority. Because, if you're talking about 15 years ago, media is an authority voice. When media say something, consumer, different people, they read news, they tend to trust and they tend to believe what the media is saying. Today, context is pretty much different. If they don't like the information the media is actually exposing, they might say, oh, it's lying. Oh, it's just being controlled by this party or that party. So the entire, context, its impact into the deficit of trust. So the trust level to against the different stakeholder is just decreasing dramatically. The media landscape, I go in very, very quickly. Well, we have about more than 800 media agency, more than 1,000 publication, and more than 200 online portals. And the way the Vietnamese, the media government, I mean, you might have the different statistic number when it come into the number, because, it's changing almost, every quarter, because sometimes you've seen the publication come in and then, 3 months after they disappear. But the most important thing is to see how the structure of the news actually being designed in Vietnam. Most of the media is actually government owned. Well, we communist country, and that's not surprising. And any top tier or second tier or third tier media, it's not surprising that they belong to the certain government entity. They either belong or under the control of the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Trade, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Education. Most of the publication is actually under the control of those ministries. But, in the mapping, you're going to see a lot of zigzag. The way that they report is not directly into all the minister or the ministry. They actually have the different association, different department underneath. Because of that, it leads into the media organization charge. It might be a bit different. Depends on the different title, depends on the different media. But I'm not going to go, in details on that. The difference between the relationship. Anything? You want to raise question?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
It's all right.
This
It's
one
very
is not
interesting
new
so
and
far.
it's
Just
not
go ahead,
unique
please.
to Vietnam. But in Vietnam, you might read the relationship, the interrelationship between all the media stakeholder a little bit different because before the relationship is a lot similar. It's actually quite territorial that you are talking to the traditional media mostly. And then if you build the relationship with all the traditional media, then you have them on the, not exactly on your allies, but that sort of relationship is a lot similar, a lot more territorial. But these days, it's very, very different. It's actually you before when you have something you communicate to the media if either you have the relationship based on the mutual benefit because you spend a lot of advertising money on them and then you can actually have the good relationship with them or you actually can pay a lot of editorial or even you're talking about the typical traditional BR like press conference like you send out sitting the press conference most of the time you actually have to pay the token in order just to get your news up. That's a traditional BR before. But these days, the relationship is just getting very, complex because you have online media, you have different group of interests, you have a different voices, and competition is getting very, very competition when it comes into, try to win the heart from the stakeholders. So if you look at the media interrelationship today, it's even the relationship, building the relationship with the media is getting very tricky. And then it's getting quite, on the complex side a little bit. But, I'm just talking in general. But that part of the reason that what adamant, one of the principle for us to build the relationship with the stakeholder and the media is you have to be truthful. Everything has to be truthful. But that's the only principle that keep us in the relationship. It might be getting slow to build the relationship, but that's how we are doing. Uh, my screen is just getting shaky, and then it's not easy to control. But anyway, I don't know how to control it. Yeah, for anyway. Okay.
It,
So
it's all right. We see it
well,
clearly.
I mean, most of the approaches and tactic with the media relationship, I think that it's quite typical that, press release, stakeholder engagement, stakeholder conference, the press conference, media partnership. I mean, sponsorship, CSR, that's sort of a tactic that you build the relationship with the media today. But what I'm going beyond the book today is the way that we engage with the media because, we have what we so call is media circle. The media also need us from the information and knowledge side, and we also need them in order just to to deliver the news, the message, the knowledge to our stakeholder in a fairest way. And there's a lot of way to engage the media these days that farm trip, engaging when we have knowledge. If you have, for example, if we launch the trust barometer or if we launch some research or if we launch some great piece of information, that's how you actually win the media on your side. And that's not just only, I'm talking about knowledge and big event. Another thing is very also important when it comes into the media engagement is your mentality, your attitude, and your behavior when you engage with them. Even, we all know the practice in Vietnam that the media want to get money. It's just a pay to play. But I think that that situation gonna fade away. I mean, I can see these days a lot of journalists who has great integrity, who interested in real knowledge, and then conduct the relationship with us based on genuine, truthful, and integrity. We might not have the when talking about admin in Vietnam, you might not see the majority of media um, you know jumping up into the air excited and saying that admin is the best or whatsoever, but we have respect because of the way that we conduct the business. And then we keep doing that, even that we keep talking to ourselves the way that we do is going against the normal practice. But we do believe that we are doing the right thing, because the more and more journalists is actually become our friends, become our allies, become our partners, because of the way that we are doing business. Um, so how can we increase the screen a little bit more, Gabor? I don't know. I mean, the word is very small. I even cannot read it. Gabor, is there any way that I can increase?
I
Okay,
hope you can read it now.
Gabor,
It is it is now quite big for the viewers, so feel free to continue. They will see it
try to
clearly.
increase my screen because my screen is very small, and then I cannot read the word actually. Um, and then I don't have the printout with me. I'm sorry. So basically, with all the change happening, either the digital world open up multi-dimensional conversation. I think the rules of engagement change a little bit compared to the way that we are doing BR before. Before you write the press release, and then you start having the relationship, and then based on the relationship that you have with the media, that's how you actually transfer the information, the knowledge that you want to do. But today, given the multidimensional of the communication world, the way that you engage is also different. The way that you wrap the story might be different. And right now, you might think of the angle also of the content is a little bit different as well, because think of the share, think of the different media that different audience that your news or your information might reach, and then think of the shareability of the information that you actually crafting. um, the modern media reality today, we are facing quite a big challenge. That part of the reason that you see the traditional BR on the brand support is actually decreasing a lot, because budget of all now I'm talking on the brand size, the big corporation who are our client, who are using our service on the traditional brand BR size. When the budget get tight, when they look at the traditional BR, the KBI become a critical factor, that they don't believe that the traditional BR can pull the desired KBI that they want. So that's part of the reason that I mentioned from the very first slide, that the traditional BR is actually decreasing the role, the critical role and the importance. Um, I'm having really trouble reading my notes. The modern media reality today, as I continue my point before, the budget's tight, the newsroom shrinking, and the reporter often wear multiple hats. Because before, if the reporter getting the token, they actually can keep for themselves. now the token has to go into the advertising budget, because we all know the print advertising budget of the entire publication is shrinking a lot because of the online media. And in Vietnam, the journalists, majority of them, you might find that, they don't have specific field. So most of them just, overall as a news or business news, or but now there's another portion that you can see coming up quite sharp and quite in specific is fashion and tech. When I come into the business news, they not really segment into the field that you want to. And almost everything is real-time news and online, so your reaction time must be a lot faster. I'm talking about crisis management. I'm talking about dealing with issues. And between the traditional media and other content channels, the line is very blurred. So, but that's why you need to think ahead. You need to think of your content, where your content is, as soon as it's actually up there, then you need to see how it's traveled, in order just to, on both sides, the protection side and the promote side, you actually have a very clear view on how your news travel, share, and getting impact. Um, right now, pitching story is a lot more difficult than before, especially when it comes into the brand promotion. Most of the journalists, unless you pay them a lot, most of the journalists, they're not interested in. So that basically changed the conversation completely. The way that we pitching news and the way that we designing the angle completely go straight into the conclusion and fact. That's how you capture the attention. Before you talking about the over promise, you lead the story from one step to another step. These days, you need the big news first. You need to slap into their face with the conclusion, and after that, the substantial data, and then the over promise. So that's pretty much sum up of my very, very top view on the BR in Vietnam. So in conclusion, if I go back into the two units that I introduced from very beginning of my presentation, is the brand BR and the corporate BR, you can see that if you're talking about traditional brand BR, it's losing relevance. It needs transforming. The corporate BR, which is the corporate affairs, which is the government relationship, which is the corporate reputation, crisis management, is slowly growing and proving the critical role. There's still gap between the market understanding and what it can offer, but that's the challenge that we're facing, and then we actually bring the gap closer and closer, day by day. So the question both for the future of BR in Vietnam is how you to modernize the brand BR, and second is how to digitalize the corporate BR. So saying that, I'm closing my presentation, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, TT, and I like very much that you ended with two questions, and maybe we can pursue further with those questions in our discussion. So thank you very much, and now I would like to hand over the word to Tran, who will be speaking about how she sees the PR world, PR business, the PR profession in Vietnam. And to this end, I will hand over the word to you, Tran.
Okay, thank you, Gabor, and thank you, Ms. TT, for a very thorough presentation about. First of all, let me introduce briefly about myself. Hi, sorry for the technical issues. So I would like to
No problem.
introduce myself again. I'm Jen. I'm currently managing the communications team at RMIT University in Vietnam. Um, I was not like trained in PR in communications. I did both my undergraduate and graduate studies in language and translation studies. But then I had the opportunity to work for a local university in their external relations office for 5 years. And then I joined RMIT Vietnam communications team, and it is here that I develop my knowledge, my expertise in communications and PR. Ms. Tang already presented to you um, um, very useful information about doing PR in Vietnam. So I'm going to just add some additional information to that, and also to share with you the experience of RMIT as an international university, and how does it manage or conduct its communication activities in Vietnam. First of all, let me give you some facts about Vietnam. You may know it already, or you may not you may be new to Vietnam. So Vietnam is in Southeast Asia. At the moment, we have like around 96 million. Um, the population is around 96 million, and 35% are living in urban areas. We have 54 ethnic groups in the country, but Vietnamese is the only official language used in the country. So when you talk about doing PR in Vietnam, you only work in Vietnamese. You don't work or communicate in any other languages. And the literacy rate is quite high, 95%. And the growth rate of the country in the first half of 2018 is around 7%, which is very good for the country. So Vietnam has a highly engaged, optimistic, and entrepreneurial population, and a rapidly changing media environment, as Ms. Tang TT already mentioned in her presentation. Um, the So with the type of information, the amount of information that the journalists receive every day, so it is very useful if you can provide them prepared content. So you package your content in a way that is very easy to uh, be picked up by the media. So in addition to, let's say, the traditional media release and photos, there should be also, let's say, video clips or infographics or links to podcasts or blog of your organization. So they can make use of your content, they can redistribute your content easily. So talking about Vietnamese media landscape, these are the statistics from July 2017. Ms. TT gave you a more like recent data about the number of publications in Vietnam. So print still persist in Vietnam, but online media is more and more dominating. So we there are like 63 provinces and cities in Vietnam, and each of them have its own TV and radio stations. So hence the number of TV channels and radio channels in Vietnam is quite high. Talking about the management of media agencies in Vietnam. So they are like strictly under the management of either the Communist Party or the government. So there are three tiers of publication, depending on the governance authority. of that publications. It's quite important to understand the target audience of these publications so that you can target the right publications for your PR campaign, or when you pitch a story to the media, you will choose the right publications at central level or local level or local government associations level, for example. Let's have a look at some statistics about digital in Vietnam. The population, as I mentioned from the beginning, is around 96 million, and we had like 64 million internet users. The internet is very accessible in Vietnam. Then we have like 55, more than 50% of the population are active social media users. Social media is really on the rise in Vietnam now. Device usage. So 97% of the population has mobile phone of any type. And interestingly, you can see that television is still quite popular in Vietnam, even though social media is increasing its presence. But then many Vietnamese people are still watching news on TV, and especially they are watching talk shows. Talk shows are now very popular in Vietnam. Let's look at the internet use. As I said, internet is very accessible in Vietnam. Some cities in Vietnam even provide free Wi-Fi to visitors, to tourists, like Da Nang City or Hue City in central Vietnam. Social media use. You can see that the penetration is like 57% of the population, and then they use mobile a lot. Talking about the popular platforms, so Facebook and YouTube are the two most popular platforms in Vietnam. And for the red row, they are the messenger or chat app that are popular in Vietnam. So Vietnamese people use Facebook Messenger a lot, and then Skype or Viber. And interestingly, Zalo is a Vietnamese app. Twitter is not very popular in Vietnam. However, in let's say for RMIT, whenever we have an let's say international conference and we want to reach international audience or researchers or international community, we will use Twitter in our communications campaign. Let's just very briefly about the history of PR in Vietnam. During the wartime and pre-1986, when Vietnam opens door to the world, we had the country had what is called propaganda. So at that time, propaganda was considered as a nation-building tool. They used propaganda to build the country after the war. Then post 1986, people had increased access to media and communication channels. And international view of PR brought to Vietnam by multinational corporations in the 1990s. So that's why PR industry is quite still young in Vietnam, even though it has progressed a lot in the past since 1990s. But the understanding about PR is still not up to what we expected, what we hoped. And when one thing about doing PR in Vietnam that you need to understand the power of interpersonal relationship. So This is a collective society, and in a research about PR in Vietnam made by some colleagues at RMIT at my university a couple of years ago. So they found out that doing PR in Vietnam is about building relationship a lot. So let's say when you do business in Vietnam, and if you the interpersonal relationship would make things easier, right? And okay, so let's move to the next one. Um, Vietnamese journalists tend to be very agreeable and easy to work with. So for RMIT, we have been in operating in Vietnam for 16 years, and we have built very good relationship with media. And I have to say that the journalists in education and business who we have worked with are very, very supportive. So we have built trust with them over the year. It is a win-win relationship for us. Like Titi said in her presentation, journalists need very good journalists. They need good news from us. They need good content, and we need them to help to share our stories. So it's beneficial for both sides. It's very important to build trust with media and to establish the relationship with them. It takes time. It takes time to do that, to get them understand who we are as an organization and our contribution to the society. Um, so um, uh, Media have become more aware of the role of PR, seeing PR as a bridge between them and business. Uh, it is just about brand promotion, but it is more than that to make them understand who we are and what we do and our contribution to the country. Um, and because of the rise of social media, so it is very important that in every communication or PR campaign, it should be an integrated one where you combine different channels in your campaign. Go with print, with online, with social media, especially your owned media, um, because it's not easy to get your story published now. So you need to maximize the owned channels like public website, your social media channels, your Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and remember to measure the impacts because it's all about the impact, what you can achieve at the end of each campaign. And for RMIT, we actually get lots of earned media over the years. So we select the news carefully, try the best angle to share with media, and they are picked up by media quite regularly. So our earned media is quite good, but we cannot forget to maximize the owned channels of the university. And uh, what I mean by mass audiences, but specialist publications too. So it is relevant to the research activities of a university. So you, um, if you want people to know more about the expertise of your lecturers, of the researchers that you have, so you need to simplify the research language so that the general audience can understand what it is. And with that note, I would like to close my presentation here, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Tran, for your very interesting insight, and to both of you. I just noted to myself, isn't it interesting that two of you, and actually I can add myself, we have three different backgrounds and none of us come originally from PR. So Titi, you mentioned your background is in advertising. Tran, you mentioned that your background is in languages. Myself, I have a background in business and sociology, and we all ended up more or less in the same profession. So I would like to come back to two issues that raised my attention very much, and I would be interested in a short discussion and asking your views on this one. If you were to give advice for a practitioner who comes to Vietnam to work here, or a company who enters the country here, a foreign investor, what would be your suggestion in terms of digital tools and social media in their PR strategy and their PR tactics? How dominantly or how significantly should they be focusing on these two areas? So is digital and social the big thing today and tomorrow in Vietnam, or is it not? What do you think? What is your view, Ms. Titi, on this one?
That's quite a big question, Gabor, I would say. But if I talk to somebody who have the intention to invest in Vietnam, channel would be the following. The primary, thinking that I would like, the primary advice that I would like to give them would be, think of long term, think of something that can sustain, think of building trust. A lot of people who come to Vietnam, intentionally or not intentionally, they want, because, Vietnam, it looks like a country for opportunities. They come and then they think that they can win fast, that they can make money fast, and they can, go with the shortcut. But that also a lot of, Vietnamese, we used to think that way because we used to grow up in the situation that we believe that opportunity come, catch it, and immediately turn it around. My first advice would be think long term, think about building trust, think about something that sustain, and then, content, strategy, channel, it will come. Now come into the channel, digital, social would be there and would be developing bigger and bigger, but they might transform very fast. I mean, given the new challenge that we are facing on the personal data protection, on all the fake news, you need to be careful using those channels. But again, that's part of the reason that I'm saying that the first thing you need to think is to build trust. So when somebody who come into Vietnam with that sort of a primary behavior, I think that you can, wherever you do, use it as the principle to guide your business. Then you will see the positive impact coming later on. Because most of the investors come to Vietnam, the mentality would be, that's we're here to win and win fast, and then, to make a lot of money. That's natural. I mean, business, you need to think of that. But if I have to give my advice, that would be my advice. Now go into the social digital. That would be everything these days. But what format? What sort of a target? What sort of audience? That would be, you need to look into very detailed, not just, simply say, oh, you need to invest on social, you need to invest on digital. To me, that's just simply hearsay. That's a must. You need to invest, but how to invest and what sort of target and what sort of content, what sort of things that you introduce. Now you building everything, you cannot ignore that channels, huh? So that would be my question, my answers.
Thank you very much. I fully understand. Yes, it does. So, what is your view on this one, Tran? How do you see this?
first of all, I have to agree with Titi about the long-term commitment when you do business in Vietnam. Let's look at RMIT. So we started quite small with 30 students back in 2001, and with a commitment to contribute to Vietnam and to help Vietnam to develop human resource for the development of the country. And after 16 years with different generations of management, we still hold on to that commitment. So it is a long-term strategy and relationship that we want to build with Vietnam. So the promotion things or the communication, the PR campaign is what comes later. And then about the use of channels, social media or digital, I think so. At the moment, Facebook seems to be the most popular one, but there will be new channels, new tools in the next 5 or maybe 3 years, 5 years. So it's not about the channels; it's all about the content. It's all about what you do. So have a good content and then find the right channels, the right tools to distribute your content.
Okay, thank you very much. Very interesting as well. So my last question would be, I think, something which any member of our viewers or audience would ask. Most of our viewers are students or people who are changing professions and moving into PR these days and are interested in how to develop their personal skills in this area. And my question to you would be, in your experience, what are specifically the skills, the competencies needed for someone to become a well-performing, a good-performing PR practitioner? So what is your take on this one? Tran, would you like to start giving some insight to this?
Yeah, I think you need interpersonal skill because you work with lots of people, lots of stakeholders, and so interpersonal skill is very important. Then I think English language is also very important now in the context of Vietnam. The country is opening up and we have more investors and things. So a very good skill in language is very necessary if you want to develop your career in multinational or in a foreign company. Yeah. And take every opportunity to learn, to study, to develop your knowledge, your skills, like on-the-job training. So train yourself. Like I didn't start as a PR practitioner, but then I learned on the job, and with the availability of technology at the moment is quite convenient and easy for everybody to upgrade their knowledge and to upskill themselves.
Okay, thank you. And what is your view, Ms. Titi, on skills and competences needed in this industry?
I think agree with Zhang on the skill set of the person who are qualified for working on the communication. I would say that, communication skill, interpersonal, and all that. But if you ask me to pick one thing, because I think that those skills can be trained from such a school like RMIT, or, it could come from original talent of somebody who have the skill of being very articulate. But, if you ask me only one, quality that I need when I look at those talents sent to me from all the different prestigious school, I would say resilient. I need somebody to show that to me. Apart from all the soft skill, hard skill that they learn or they already have originally, I test a person. I need to see that, that person has the you know, the gut, the ability to face challenge, to go through, but still keep very firm on, you know, on what, on their opinion about certain things, on what they want. So if for the lack of work, I would call it resilient, or, you know, somebody just, you know, call, um, I just forgot the word. I just, you know, but you know, if you know what I mean, somebody who know exactly what they want, and be very firm, very consistent, and have the stamina to actually go through up and down challenges in order just to achieve what they want. Because, you know, one of the let me explain myself a little bit on that point. From my observation, the millennials and even the Gen Z, the latest generation, from my observation, is they don't know what they want. They change their mind very often, and then maybe because of that, or maybe because of a lot of reason, they don't have the stamina to. They keep saying that pursue what they want, but whether or not they know what they want. And second, they actually have a very long stamina in order just to go through things, and in order just to work out the solution, or achieving what they want. So when I look for as a talent, apart from all the things that Chung already mentioned, I will look for that exactly quality.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm afraid in the last 3 sentences we somewhat lost your voice, but I did gather that you find it very, very important to have the stamina, to have the resilience, to have the dedication, to have the commitment, because it is a profession that is full of challenges, and unless someone is ready to face these challenges, and in connection with what Ms. Tran said, also ready to learn and relearn and redevelop skills all the time, they will not be successful in this profession. So I think that is a very, very good closing thought and closing remark from this discussion.
Yes.
I thank you very much for your participation. So Ms. Titi, Ms. Tran, thank you for your excellent insights. I can just underline, together with my personal experience, that this is a country that is developing very fastly and which has tremendous potential for the PR business, for the PR practitioners, for PR students. So it is one of the countries to be in these days if someone wants to pursue a career in PR. Finally, to our dear viewers, I would like to draw your kind attention not to forget to log this on for your CPD. And if you would like to be more involved in other events of CIPR International, I suggest you check in with our Twitter account, our Facebook page, our LinkedIn group, and our website. So I think quite similarly to what we have been speaking about Vietnam, the range of various social media and online tools available for contact. So thank you very much for your attention. If you'd like to join us, please write to international@cipr.co.uk. And if you are interested in further similar conversations and discussion, please stay tuned in. So thank you very much, Ms. Titi. Thank you very much, Ms. Tran, for joining